Good morning, Year 5, and welcome to reading. So, ready for next week, we're going to be carrying on with Stig of the Dump. I've gone back to chapter 2 just to give you a bit of a recap with some questions so that it's fresh in your mind for Monday. So, I'm going to read one section of the book, and then there's 4 questions, and then another section of the book with another 4 questions. I will also put these questions on a Teams quiz so that if you'd like to do them on there, you can, or if you want to email in your answers, that's also okay. So, chapter 2. By the time Barney had got his load to the edge of the pit, he was quite tired. But there was still the problem of getting them to the bottom. He sat on the camel's neck tree trunk. The string was still there. It was the thick brown sort, and he thought it would be strong enough for a few jam jars. He called to Stig, and after a time Stig came out backwards, like a badger with its bedding dragging a load of chalk. "I've got some things for you, Stig," Barney called. He pulled up the string and took the end of the pile of jam jars. About 8 of them were packed in a cardboard box. It would take too long to pass them down one by one, so he tied the string round the box, took it carefully along the tree trunk and started to lower it. This wasn't nearly as easy as the carrots. The box swung wildly. The string round it started slipping. The part he was holding tried to run through his fingers and burned his hands. He took a turn round the stump of a branch and let it run out round that, hardly daring to look down and see what was happening. He hoped Stig wouldn't get a jam jar on his head. The box was hanging by one corner when it reached the ground, but instead of untying it, Stig disappeared into his den. "Hey, Stig, undo it," Barney called. "There's some more to come." Stig came out again holding what was left of a large, broad-brimmed lady's straw hat with ribbons to tie it under the chin. He untied the string from the box and tied it to the ribbons. It made quite a useful-looking cargo sling. "Jolly good idea, Stig," Barney shouted. "Stig's got brains," he thought. After that, it was quite easy. He hauled up the hat, filled it with jam jars, lowered it down with the string running round the stump of a branch, waited for Stig to unload, hauled it up again, and so on. When he had finished the jam jars, he started on the tins, which were much lighter, and when he had lowered all the tins, he looked at the truck. Okay, 4 questions for you. He sat on the camel's neck tree trunk. What impact does this author's description have on the reader? That's question number 1. Number 2, how many jam jars was Barney giving to Stig? Number 3, summarize what Stig did to make the process easier. And number 4, based on the last paragraph of the extract, what do you think will happen next? Now, we have actually read a bit more, so you can use what you remember for your prediction. Okay, you can go back in this video to go back to the text, or if not, I'm going to read the next section before we go through the answers. Stig had stacked the jars on top of each other, lying on their sides. They made a sort of wall of glass like that, but then rolled about, and of course there were gaps between the jars. Barney looked at one side of the den, the darkest side, which really needed windows. It was built of wooden boxes from the dump, bottoms outwards, open tops inwards. He looked at the digging tool and knocked the bottom of one out. There was now an open square where the daylight came in, but so did the wind, and Stig didn't seem at all pleased at sitting in a draught. Stig liked to be snug, thought Barney. He carried the jars in and stacked them in the frame of the box. They fitted all quite well. The light came in, but the draft came in too. Stig got up and looked at the gaps between the jars, grunted and went out of the den. Barney followed him, wondering. Stig led the way along the bottom of the cliff to where there had lately been a landslide, and quite a large chunk of a cliff top had come down in one piece. Between the topsoil and the chalk, there was a layer of red clay, good, damp, squidgy stuff you could make a model animal with. Stig began to dig out lumps of clay with his fingers, and Barney found another good clay mine, and they did the same. He got as much as they could carry and took it back to the den, and from the outside, Stig set to work to fill in the gaps between the jam jars. They had to make 2 more journeys before all the jars were firmly bedded in clay, and then Barney carefully wiped the smears off the bottoms of the jars with a rug. They stood and admired their window. They even made faces at each other, one standing inside and the other outside, because you could almost see through it. It certainly let the light in, even though it was late in the afternoon and there was not much light to let in. Okay, 4 more questions for you. What evidence is there that Stig has used this clay before? Find and copy one word that tells you the clay is soft. And what does Barney use to clean the window with? And finally, compare Stig's home at the start of the extract to Stig's home at the end of the extract. So focus on what has changed, what is different. So as I said, these questions are on Teams. So if you go onto your assignments, onto the quiz for reading today, you can answer those questions by typing it in, or you can send that as an email. For those doing it on paper, I'm going to go through the answers now. So back to the original 4. So the impact of saying the camel's neck tree trunk allows the reader to really visualize and imagine the shape. So saying it's a camel's neck helps us to know that it is curved. So that is the impact the author's description has. It helps the reader know and imagine how curved the trunk is. There was 8 jam jars. For this one, you can have a summary. So something about using the cargo sling or the straw hat or helping him from the bottom of the opening, anything to do with what Stig did. And a sensible prediction might be, I predict that Barney and Stig will try to lower the truck into Stig's pit, or that they will take other things down. Okay, and then the second 4 questions. The evidence could be something like Stig must have used the clay before because he knew where to find it and he led Barney to it. The one word was squidgy. He used a rag to clean the windows. And the difference is at the beginning of the extract, Stig's house was dark. And by the end, there was light coming through because of the window. So well done, Year 5. Hopefully this has jogged your memory, ready for reading more Stig of the Dump next week.